justice, temperance, wisdom, courage. Applying ancient philosophy to modern times, this is the Sunday Stoic. Thank you for joining me for episode 24 of the Sunday Stoic. How do you study philosophy? I have several books. I've read some of the ancients. I'm still working on Seneca. I've read the works of Epictetus, of Marcus Aurelius. I've read some of the modern authors. I have a book called The Daily Stoic, which gives you a new quote every single day. And according to Seneca, that's a great way to get started. We don't have Stoic schools to go to, so we have to be our own teacher and our own pupil at the same time, basically. But learning little snippets of Stoicism to help us navigate the day is a great way to get started. But that is not the end goal here. The end goal is for you to be your own self-sufficient philosopher. Regardless of your profession, you might be a farmer, you might be a teacher like me, or a cook, or an accountant, or a CEO, whatever it is, you want to be your own philosopher. You have your own life philosophy based on this idea of Stoicism. I was actually thinking it'd be really interesting if you could change history and keep the Stoic schools open back in the day, all the way up to the present, because I bet Stoicism would do just like the other philosophies did. If you trace the family lineage of Stoicism, you know, it's a branching lineage leading back towards Socrates and Plato and all those guys. It would definitely have branched out. There would be several schools today that had roots in Stoicism but had evolved since then. And who knows what they would be called or what their ideas would be. But in the modern era, you can read Stoicism, you can read other philosophies as well, and you use Stoicism as the core of your philosophy, and you grow it. You're not just reliving the thoughts of dead men 2,000 years ago. You are updating it as well and making your own internal life philosophy here. That's part of what we're doing. And you don't want to rely on brute force memorization to do that. So as you get a feel for philosophy over time, you're going to build on it. And eventually, you may even be able to give your own advice to others, your own unique advice that's not derived directly from the works of Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius.
Like the show? Help support the Sunday Stoic by rating us on iTunes. Volunteer to read, suggest content, or send comments to sundaystoic@gmail.com. And podcasting is expensive. To help support the show, you can use our email to donate through PayPal, sundaystoic@gmail.com. Thanks, and carpe diem.
Moral Letters to Lucilius, Letter 33, on the futility of learning maxims, verses 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You need not call upon me for extracts and quotations. Such thoughts as one may extract here and there in the works of other philosophers run through the whole body of our writings. Hence, we have no show window goods. Nor do we deceive the purchaser in such a way, if he enters our shop, he will find nothing except that which is displayed in the window. We allow the purchasers themselves to get their samples from anywhere they please. Suppose we should desire to sort out each separate motto from the general stock, to whom shall we credit them? To Zeno, Cleanthes, Chrysippus, Panetius, or Poseidonus? We Stoics are not subjects of a despot. Each of us lays claim to his own freedom. For this reason, give over hoping that you can skim, by means of epitomes, the wisdom of distinguished men. Look into their wisdom as a whole. Study it as a whole. They are working out a plan and weaving together, line upon line, a masterpiece, from which nothing can be taken away without injury to the whole. Examine the separate parts, if you like, provided you examine them as parts of the man himself. She is not a beautiful woman whose ankle or arm is praised, but she whose general appearance make you forget to admire her single attributes. Doubtless they would be of much benefit to those who are still novices and worshipping outside the shrine, for single maxims sink in more easily when they are marked off and bounded like a line of verse. That is why we give to children a proverb, or that which the Greeks called kria, to be learned by the heart, that sort of thing that can be comprehended by the young mind, which cannot as yet hold more. For a man, however, whose progress is definite, to chase after choice extracts, and to prop his weakness by the best known and briefest sayings, and to depend upon his memory, is disgraceful. It is time for him to lean on himself. He should make such maxims, and not memorize them. For it is disgraceful, even for an old man or one who has sighted old age, to have a notebook knowledge. Forgetting trouble is the way to cure it. There are things within our power and things outside our power. It is better to die than to live badly. These are the types of maxims or sayings that Seneca is referring to in this writing. So let me break down this reading here. I really like the advice in this one. First, he describes Stoicism as a store that you would see on any city street with goods displayed in the window. And he says that Stoicism is not reducible to just a few things you could display in a shop window. And even if you do display a few things in the window, if you come inside the store, there's a lot more to it. It's a store where there's a lot more material than you could possibly shove into the shop window display. Stoicism is much deeper than a few verses that you can memorize. Now he says here and in other readings that Stoics can glean wisdom from many sources. So if you want to read other Stoics or other philosophies like Buddhism or the Bible or Epicurus or whatever it may be, and you can find wisdom in there, that is completely compatible with Stoicism. You're sort of building your own Stoic philosophy, your own branch of Stoicism when you become a Stoic. So we can glean wisdom from many sources, and as he says here, a very profound thing, there is no Stoic king. And we lay claim to our own freedom. So there is no one Stoic that you follow as if they were the chosen one. And you lay claim to your own freedom. You can read other sources. You can come up with your own ideas to improve Stoicism. He recommends we read philosophers as a whole. So I'm actually working my way through Moral Letters to Lucilius, also known as Letters from a Stoic, reading it from beginning to end. But he recommends we read them as a whole rather than just take little verses that we memorize out of their readings. But he says, when you're just getting started, memorizing little verses are really handy. You can keep them on the tip of your tongue, in the front of your mind, to help you to remember how to act in certain situations, to help you learn the behaviors that are needed to be Stoic. But after you reach a certain point in your studies, those behaviors should be internalized. You should have a feel for what Stoicism is. And at that point, it's basically shameful to rely on just memorizing Stoic verses. At that point, you should have a feel for the philosophy. You should be able to write your own maxims for other new Stoics to learn from. He says it's a shame for, once you reach a certain age, to rely on memory for your Stoicism. It should be internalized. And as he says at the very end, it's a shame to have notebook knowledge. I say the same thing to my freshman biology class when we're learning biology. You can't just rely on a bunch of facts that you've written in a notebook. You need to understand the patterns of how things fit together to be able to problem solve. The problem with learning maxims, it's great to get started, to read the Daily Stoic. I have the Daily Stoic. It's a book with a reading every day, and it's a good way to start your day to think about applying Stoicism that day. That shouldn't be your only avenue into the philosophy. You should read all of Epictetus, all of Seneca if you can, and all of Marcus Aurelius. Unfortunately, we don't have much else in existence from that era, but get a feeling for the philosophy as a whole, to begin to internalize that philosophy. because you can't memorize little verses for everything that will happen to you in your life. There's another long letter from Seneca called on receiving advice, or on advice. I recommend you check that one out. He goes into this further, where he emphasizes once again that it's important to learn and use maxims, these little sayings, these handy little sayings, to help reach people, to help them to get started. But at a certain point, you shouldn't rely on them anymore. So as a Stoic, we are trying to start off down a path, learning what others have to say, using that to console us, to help us to start thinking stoically. But eventually, we should be our own philosopher. Be your own Marcus Aurelius. Be your own Seneca. And that is the goal of Stoicism in the long run. I, however, am not quite there yet, so I will not leave you any original Sunday Stoic advice today, other than have a great week, stay stoic, and carpe diem.